British now, head 2 right and left, turn northbound. Clear land, traffic speed 2 jets, good morning.
May 13th, 2008, Houston, Texas. British Airways Flight 195 arrived at the George Bush Intercontinental Airport. The chief executive officer of BAE Systems made his way toward immigration. British-based BAE, also known as British Aerospace, is the world's third largest arms manufacturer, and its biggest customer is the Pentagon.
Welcome to the United States.
But the CEO's visit quickly turned sour. He was being targeted on orders from the Justice Department. Armed federal officers detained the executive and took him to an interrogation room.
If you're under investigation, the U.S. authorities are probably going to take whatever steps they feel are lawful to try and get information.
Officials copied his documents, downloaded his phone, and then gave him a subpoena to appear before a federal grand jury.
This was an aggressive tactic taken by the Department of Justice to send a message that this investigation was being taken seriously by the United States.
This investigation of BAE Systems is part of a new crackdown on corruption led by the Justice Department. The BAE case has become a critical test of that effort and the international fight against bribery. This is a story that began over 20 years ago with what became an $80 billion international arms deal. A fighter jet deal involving BAE, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia.
If there was one person who was the main man behind this arms deal, it turned out it was the US ambassador, Prince Bandar bin Sultan.
This is the same Prince Bandar who at times calls himself Bandar Bush.
This is the one that everybody now calls Bandar Bush because he's so close to the President Bush and the Bush family. I mean, you couldn't be better connected than this man.
A shrewd dealmaker, friend to princes and presidents, Prince Bandar is connected on both sides of the aisle.
You know Prince Bandar?
Of course, very well.
How would you describe him?
He's a master diplomat. As a friend of mine, he's been quail hunting with me, which is about as close together in the South as you can get to another person to invite him to come quail hunting. So Bandar's a good friend of mine.
He's a larger-than-life character. He had fantastically good political relationships in that he was close to the American government and other European governments, particularly the UK government. He managed good and close relationships that were positive and beneficial to both sides.
In 1985, Prince Bandar was tasked with getting new fighter jets for the Saudi Arabian Air Force. At first, he approached the United States and a supportive President Ronald Reagan.
But the Saudis couldn't easily buy direct from the US because there would be problems with Congress because of the Israel lobby. It was easier politically to buy this equipment from the British, and it was pretty much a secret at the time that then British Prime Minister Mrs. Thatcher and then US President Ronald Reagan had been involved with Bandar in organizing this arms deal.
She immediately informed us that she considers Saudi Arabia as a strong friend and will be willing to support the kingdom with whatever the kingdom needs. End of discussion. From there on, everything else was technical.
I can remember when Mrs. Thatcher told me that she had signed this fantastic contract that would secure thousands of jobs and create great wealth for Britain. It was an agreement between the British government and the Saudi government, and the subcontractor, the person to deliver the aircraft and the equipment, was British Aerospace.
The deal was called Al-Yamama, the dove in Arabic. It was seen as a political triumph for Margaret Thatcher and the UK. Bandar watched as his father, the powerful Saudi Minister of Defense, signed the deal. The secrecy that surrounded the Al-Yamama contract fueled long-time suspicions of corruption within the Saudi royal family. The way the Saudis paid for all those arms was in oil, which was then sold producing an enormous amount of cash that was exempt from any public accounting.
The suspicion is that if you have a deal like that with that much money floating around in cash...
Look, of course there's suspicion, and of course people are entitled to be suspicious, but there is a difference between suspicion and fact. As far as I'm concerned, if the British government and the Saudi government reached a sovereign agreement over an arms contract that resulted in a tremendous number of jobs in Britain, a great deal of wealth creation in Britain, and enabled Saudi Arabians to defend themselves, I think that's a jolly good contract.
There'd always been rumours about this Saudi arms deal, but nobody could ever stand it up.
The headlines today.
Allegations of bribery have marked Britain's biggest claims to huge commissions.
Also, 48 tornadoes saved 20,000 jobs in the aerospace.
While rumors swirled, this man had an inside view. Peter Gardner was a high-end travel agent working in London when the deal was signed. One of his clients was Prince Bandar's cousin, the Saudi Prince Turki bin Nasser. He was the deputy commander of the Royal Saudi Air Force, in charge of administering the Al Yamama contract.
I could see the lifestyle of people improving vastly during this period.
You mean Prince Turki Nasser?
Yes, his lifestyle changed greatly.
All of a sudden he had more jets or more mansions?
Well, there was the long-term building taking place in Beverly Hills, and there were some very nice aircraft that were appearing, and there was a yacht. Money didn't seem to be tight anymore.
Another thing changed as well. Gardner was told that from then on, all the bills for his services should be directed to BAE.
I was required to be on call 24 hours a day, year-round.
So if one of the Saudis turned to you and said, we want this or we want that, you had to call BAE for authorization?
The authority had to come from BAE in each individual instance, whether it was a few pounds or £500,000.
When someone asked you what you did, how would you describe yourself?
Well, a super-duper valet, I suppose. The services that we provided had an enormous range. Hotel accommodation, flights, anything.
At one point you had to charter a jet to bring back a Rolls-Royce or two?
Well, there's more than one occasion when we ship cars back to Saudi Arabia. The Prince is a very keen collector of cars, including vintage cars, so that was not unusual.
Gardner and others would also take care of the Prince's female friends, as well as his family.
As far as the ladies were concerned, they liked to shop, and sometimes there could well be quite a bit of shopping. We did, in fact, on one occasion, charter a 747 from Los Angeles to take all the purchases back to Saudi Arabia.
Just shopping?
Yes.
A cargo jet full of just shopping?
It's the lifestyle that many people would like to have if they could afford it. It's a little bit beyond that of a film star, because you've got the diplomatic passport with it. It is very much a different world. It's very much a private world as well, usually.
It wasn't just Prince Turki bin Nasser's family that was benefiting. When his son married the daughter of Prince Bandar bin Sultan, it was Gardner's travel agency that made the arrangements for their lavish 2-month round-the-world honeymoon.
I went on in advance to set things up. They knew exactly where they wanted to go. They wanted to start in Singapore, and then from Singapore they went to Bali, and then afterwards they went to Hawaii.
Who paid for Prince Bandar's daughter's honeymoon?
It was paid by BAE.
Did you ever ask, why is it set up this way? Why is BAE paying me and not the Saudi royal family?
Well, I did raise the question with BAE, and BAE always made it very clear to us that this was a highly confidential government-to-government contract.
A country-to-country contract to provide travel services, honeymoons, Rolls-Royces, and so forth?
Yeah. It's unusual. And I had never seen anything like it before, and I haven't seen anything like it since. It was unique.